Yeah, hello Tamara.
Hello, how are you today?
Yeah, I'm doing great. Thank you. And how are you doing?
I am doing fabulous. I'm so excited to be here.
Yeah, we too honored and welcome to the Global Virtual Summit 2026, Tamara. And before going to start your session, I want to introduce you to our audience. Okay.
Wonderful.
Yeah. Tamara O'Neill is an author, leadership consultant, speaker, researcher, and university collaborator whose work focuses on accountability, organization excellence, and human centered leadership. She lectures on leadership and organizational resilience and is a creator of the CARE model and author of Who Holds the Leader. Her research explores leadership resilience, trust, accountability, and the responsible integration of artificial intelligence in the workplace. Drawing on executive leadership experience and scholarly research, she equips leaders to build high performing cultures where people and performance thrive together. You have done a great job, Tamara, and the stage
Thank
is
you.
all yours.
Thank you. That was a mouthful for you, wasn't it? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to share my screen. Okay, let's get in here. All right. And can you folks see my presentation? Are you able to see it? Hello there. Are you guys seeing my presentation?
Yes, Tamara, please go ahead.
Okay, can you put my presentation up?
Yeah, it's already on the main stage. Please
Oh,
continue.
okay, thank you. I just am unable to see it. Okay, fantastic. Well, then I'm going to jump right into it. All right. So, first of all, I'm so excited to be here and to be speaking to individuals regarding the nurturing emerging leaders to innovate and inspire, which is what I'm all about. And that is training and developing individuals, both our current leaders and also our future leaders. I'm also, as you indicated, author of Who Holds the Leader, which is a memoiric account of grief to loss and how the leader and organization, when they collide and there's not a lack of an organizational system to support that leadership and organizational role, what happens. And I wrote a model that helps organizations to be able to navigate that experience, and it's called the CARE model. And my second book will Building a Culture That Holds, which is the workbook for that. So very excited about introducing that. In regards to being committed to excellence, I want to talk about that notion because that's what I've been able to utilize as I've led organizations across the country and over $100 million in assets, and at any one time having anywhere from around 200 to 300 people reporting to me both directly and indirectly, and facilitating teams that were able to facilitate amazing results. I'm known kind of as the turnaround agent, so I typically go into these hotels that are underperforming. Primarily my industry is hospitality, but I've worked with other industries as well. And so I typically would go into hotels that are underperforming and try and figure out what's happening. Why are they not performing? It could be revenues are down, but their profits are revenues are up, profits are down, or vice versa. Difficulties in the revenue, and the team doesn't know what to do. Typically, when I go in, the single most common denominator in non-performing teams is a lack of leadership or poor leadership, and sometimes just not understanding what needs to be done to be committed to excellence. So when I implement these systems that are embracing being committed to excellence, it's rooted in this whole notion of accountability. And so typically what I would ask the audience is to explain the difference between responsibility and accountability. Since we're on a virtual platform here, what I would say to you is that when you're looking at responsible, if I'm going to use the hotel experience, then that may be the person who's checking someone in at the front desk. They're responsible for when that individual comes up to the front desk, checking them in, giving them a key, and wishing them well. When that guest goes down to the guest room, they check in, walk into the room, and they see that they don't have the towels that they need. Maybe their AC isn't working. Maybe there's some challenges in the rooms. They turn around, they head back to the front desk. And when they speak to the front desk agent, they say to them, I'm sorry, I've had all these issues. Now, if the individual is only committed to responsibility, they're going to say things like what we often hear today is, oh, that's not my fault. I can't believe this keeps happening. You're not the first person that said that. And whenever something like that happens, typically we as the customer are taken back, and we don't certainly feel like the organization is committed to excellence, nor are they giving us what we paid for. But if someone is committed to excellence and really embracing the accountability factor, what they might do instead is say, I'm really sorry that happened to you. I have extra towels here behind the front desk. How many would you like? I'll give those to you. I'm going to contact maintenance. I'm going to find out if they can get down there right away and take a look at your AC. In the interim, I see in my system that we only have one room left of your room type. I'm going to hold that for you. How does that sound to you? Just to be safe. As you can see, that gives a whole different dynamic. And then we can put icing on the cake, and perhaps that guest service agent is empowered to say something like, in addition to that, I'm going to give you a couple of drink coupons that can be used for alcohol or non-alcoholic beverages, and also maybe a complimentary appetizer in our restaurant. How does that sound? So as you can see, that shifts the whole response and the tempo of that encounter from this isn't my responsibility to I am completely accountable. In fact, Gleason states accountability is probably the single most important element fueling truly successful organizations. On my slide here, you can see that accountability is at the top of our accountability metric. When we're embracing this notion of accountability in our teams, it strengthens our culture. It breeds excellence. It makes people want to do great things. It ensures that they have ownership, and it builds trust. And we'll talk about how important trust is in building high-performing teams. And then also it sets expectations. People understand that the bar isn't here. Instead, we're raising the bar because we're committed to excellence, and we really want to embrace this notion of we want to be better than our competition. So what does that do? That in turn helps everyone to achieve a common goal. It also helps define the mission. So often organizations can say that they have a mission and a vision and they have those statements formulated, but they're not living that and they're not breathing that every day. So you can read that mission and vision statement, but the only way that that is going to be reemphasized and lived in our team is if we as leaders are living that and breathing that so that they can experience that cultural shift. It's also, when we talk about accountability, it's important to understand setting the performance indicators helps us to define reality. So often today, we want to shift around and from those KPIs, those key performance indicators, because it's not maybe in vogue. I would argue it's really important as we move forward in any organization that we get really clear about what our most important metrics are. And we're able to communicate that to our team so that they in turn know exactly what that means to us. So for example, if we're going to use the hospitality example and say it's a hotel, guest service reviews are incredibly important, because if you're not a 4.0 or higher in that 1 to 5 category, chances are you're going to go down in your sort order on the whether it's booking.com or Expedia. And as we know, if you go too low and you get on page 2, you're probably never going to get booked unless it's a sellout weekend. So if we say to our teams 4.0 or better is our bottom line metric on our key performance indicators for our guest surveys, whenever we have anything that comes in below that, we have to be willing to have the conversation with the team, dissect it, and figure out why we didn't achieve that goal. On the other side of that, when we get one that knocks it out of the park at a 5.0, then we need to be willing to celebrate that as well. We would do this for your financial goals, for your employee surveys. All of those things are equally important for us in achieving that overall accountability and excellence that result in great performance. So when we do all of those things, it makes it really clear for our teams to understand what performance looks like and what success looks like. That in turn helps you to empower the team, and it avoids that group think. So again, we've empowered them, we've told them what's expected. So we're not allowing any room for this group think to start allowing the gossip and those things to come into play, which can kill teamwork. And the studies tell us that when we're not really clear what our expectations are with our team, and we're not living it, eating it, breathing it, they fill in the blanks themselves. And unfortunately, they fill it in with information that sometimes is completely inaccurate. So when we look at this notion of being committed to excellence, I want to put it into 5 buckets. Number 1, fostering accountability earns respect. We don't chase approval. I've told my teams when I go in, because when you're facilitating change, sometimes you're not the most popular one in the beginning. So you have to speak truth. If you're good at what you do and you're encompassing the team and you want better for the overall organization, in the end, what's going to happen is they're going to like you just fine. Because if they respect you and they see that you want what's best for them, in the end, it always works out that way. It never works the other way around. So I say to my team, I want you to like me fine, but I want you to respect me more, and you need me to be that kind of leader. Additionally, pursuing excellence, not perfection. As you can tell, I'm a cheerleader for my teams. The perfect day is me being able to celebrate victories every single day. Unfortunately, as a leader, we're not able to celebrate things that are mediocre or failing our expectations. When that happens, if I'm committed to perfection, then I'm going to blow the day and say, this day stunk. But if I'm committed to excellence, I can say, we had an opportunity, we addressed it, and we figure out how we're going to overcome that. So we're committed to excellence, and tomorrow's going to be an even better day. And you can see how that feels different. And then again, integrity is really important. Being a person of integrity, in my opinion, is one of the single most important things you bring to the table in all relationships. That's personal and it's professional. We try to say that these are different. We can behave differently in our relationships at work than we do at home. There are nuances that are different, but at the end of the day, we need to be men, women, people of integrity at all times in order for our team to want to follow us and to trust us, just like it is in any other relationship in our life. Number 2, care is a competitive advantage. I would say to you that unfortunately in today's world, being nice is a competitive advantage, because unfortunately we are surrounded by people that sometimes aren't. So again, I think it's rooted in that age-old antic of do unto others as you would have done to you. So treat our guests well and treat each other well. And that in turn creates this environment that says caring is so important about what we do in delivering guest service and customer service. Respond with purpose. We can't be laissez-faire without guests and our colleagues thinking we don't care. Honestly, if you say to a colleague or to a customer, anyone, that you're going to get back to them within 24 hours, if you can't meet that deadline, it is so important that we reach out to people. We let them know before that deadline is up that we've encountered a snag. We underestimated the time that it was going to take for us to get this done. Let them know beforehand, and then you're going to garner respect. They're going to be like, chances are they're going to be like, absolutely, it's fine if you take some extra time. Unfortunately, most of the time, people will take that extra time, send the proposal later, and barely even acknowledge that they missed a deadline. That's not building trust and social capital. So when you do contact ahead of time and letting them know, it not only builds that trust, they know you can count on them because, by the way, you are the face of the organization. So if you don't meet timelines and you don't say anything about it, they're going to think the organization will do the same. Professionalism matters. I would say how we speak, how we articulate, how we dress, our cleanliness, our attention to detail, all of those things speak to the leader that we are, and they let those that we're engaging with understand they're important to us and that we've taken the time to show up professionally in all aspects. And then again, lead by example. Your actions set the standard every single day, in every moment. Culture isn't created by what leaders expect. Quite honestly, it's totally created by what leaders demonstrate every single day. So what else is needed to develop high-performing teams? When we talk about empowerment, empowered team members are more apt to own positive solutions. And then additionally, the studies tell us that these members are also less likely to buy into that group think we were talking about because they're empowered to be able to say something that isn't what they believe the truth to be. I also want to discuss trust and how that is foundational in every team, at least in high-performing teams. Patrick Lencioni, one of my favorite authors, and I highly encourage anyone who is looking to deliver teams that are committed to excellence and bring them to the next level to read that book on the 5 dysfunctions of a team. He contends that trust is the single most impactful dysfunction of the team. So if you were looking at a pyramid, basically trust is your foundation. And when you think about it, it kind of goes back to what I was saying before, that trust creates that whole foundation of what we're standing on. And when we don't have it, we essentially can't have a high-performing team because your foundation is weak. Insperity contends that trust can directly impact performance and output, as well as interpersonal relationships. People don't want to do business with people they can't trust. 3 hallmarks: people do business with people they know, they like, and they trust. And I would contend that people work for people that they know, like, and trust as well. Open and prolific communication builds trust. Knowing that I can be honest with you and I can give you my honest feedback thoughtfully, and it's going to be honored whether you agree with it or not. Say what you mean and mean what you say. People know the difference. Respect cannot be earned without trust. Teams will not follow leaders if they don't trust. It's that simple. In fact, it's interesting because Insperity in their research on leadership, they put this really simple model together that it really is insightful. I think so often, and myself included, before reading this information, you think about you as a leader or an aspiring leader, a leader that you're working for, are the ones that are impacting the people to deliver results. That's only partially true. Their study has indicated that leaders influence emotions. Those emotions are what drive people, and people drive performance. So when you're encountering a guest, someone you're doing business with, certainly one of your employees, if you're appealing to emotion first, that's going to drive that performance and or the action that you're requiring or desiring and the outcome. I love this quote. And this is from Grossman Group in a Forbes magazine on leadership. Trust is considered extremely important in building solid teams as it allows for our open communication, collaboration, and a sense of psychological safety, enabling team members to perform at their best, take risk, and support each other, ultimately leading to a better overall team performance and outcome and the productivity. Without trust, teams can struggle with conflict, hesitation to share ideas, and decreased engagement. And I think any of us who have been in a culture that lacks the ability to have that open and honest communication can relate to this. It just is impossible to have a high-performing team. So key points about trust in teams. It's essential for collaboration. When team members trust each other, they're more willing to share information, ideas, and feedback openly, which is crucial for effective collaboration. It improves communication. Trust fosters an environment where people feel comfortable expressing their opinions and concerns without fear of repercussions, leading to better communication. It enhances psychological safety. Feeling trusted by your team allows you to take risk, admit mistakes, ask for help, and set boundaries. It boosts team morale. When team members feel valued and supported by their colleagues, it leads to higher morale, and it also leads to more job satisfaction. Increased productivity. High trust teams tend to be more productive and achieve better results due to improved collaboration and problem solving. Also, I want to discuss the importance of safety and the role of building cultures and physical trust. It's so important today, even more so than ever, I would argue. So creating a culture that doesn't tolerate gossip. Gossip erodes trust, creates negative energy. It stimulates blame and lack of accountability. It's one of the things that I communicate to my leaders, that is going to be one of the highest non-tolerant metrics that I have. I simply don't tolerate gossip because it destroys trust and it kills culture. So the importance of open communication, we have to understand that we should be able to give positive and good feedback, but also constructive feedback. And understanding that conflict is not bad, it's what one does in conflict that can be bad. Healthy environments make it safe to disagree. From these agreements and disagreements, better solutions can be generated, and each time conflict is overcome. Quite honestly, whenever you overcome that conflict, you actually grow trust. It's counterintuitive. We think, oh my goodness, this is going to be bad because we're not all agreeing. It's quite the contrary. When we're able to work through those difficult moments and get through it to the other side, we build a culture that says, I can trust this person and we can go through adversity together. And then we also need to think about physical safety, which is really important today. What are we doing for our incident handling, security cameras, conflict resolution, all of that, because people want to feel safe. Also, when we think about accountability, we have a new dynamic on the horizon here, and that is artificial intelligence collaboration. And what is that influence on leadership? So when we look at the human and the artificial intelligence collaboration together, AI does not eliminate accountability, but it can obscure it. So high-performing teams don't ask, what system made this recommendation? Instead, they ask, who owns the outcome? AI changes leadership in 3 important ways. Number 1 is accountability. So what you need to do as a leader is assign one accountable owner and understand that AI informs the decisions, but people own the results. Trust. Trust is it makes it safe to question AI. Disagreements and engagement, they're not resistant. So it's okay to say, I'm not really sure I agree with what AI has recommended here. Can we take a closer look? Environments that create that kind of energy end up being more accountable and having better results. And then peer accountability as well. So the challenge is it okay to challenge these recommendations together? It absolutely should be in a culture that embraces accountability and empowerment. And don't let the system said so become an excuse. Leadership determines whether AI strengthens performance or it weakens accountability. That's all up to us as leaders. So if you're looking at a leadership checklist, my recommendations to you is before using AI, define who owns the decision in each project. During the discussions, ask who is accountable, what might AI be missing, and do we agree with this recommendation? Because not all AI recommendations are going to be the top choice for everyone. And then after the decisions, reward people who caught errors, who challenged assumptions, who improved recommendations. And then remember, again, AI informs the decisions, leaders build accountability, and teams create excellence. It simply doesn't go the other way around. So what else do we need in developing high-performing teams? Again, we talked about praise and positive constructive feedback. Be sincere, be specific about that feedback. It's still helpful when you're saying something that's positive to a colleague or someone who's working for you. And then when you're delivering that constructive feedback, consider your audience and don't be afraid to deal with non-working behaviors. However, delivery matters and where you do it. Don't do it in public because you kill trust. Certainly pull the person behind closed doors, have conversations about what works and what doesn't work for the organization. Don't make it personal. Make it about best outcomes. And then understanding that all of this accountability and creating this environment of trust and high performing teams helps us with retention, because high turnover, its negative impact is erosion of trust, lost productivity. It's typically 1.5 to 2 times an annual salary whenever you have turnover. That's what it costs you to your bottom line. You have damage to your employer brand. We've all seen those organizations that ad for the same position over and over again. Nobody wants to go work for them because they know there's probably an issue inside the organization. And then you have that lost knowledge when you have turnover. And the negative impact of the team dynamics can be significant, especially if it's a valued colleague. So, as we're wrapping this up and we talk about providing hospitality or guest service that's committed to excellence, I would say to you that it's not difficult, but it's hard work. And what does that include? Embracing accountability, caring, provide service and leadership that is rooted in kindness. Simply be nice. Have a sense of urgency. Don't be laissez-faire about your responses. Be professional, lead by example, empower your team so that they can make a difference and they want to work with you. Create a culture of trust, both emotional and physical, and then be open and honest in your communication and your feedback. What does that do in my experience? Is it results in delivering award-winning teams, which I have across the country, high-performing producing, and results that are sought after by so many other organizations and teams that want to stay working right within your organization. Thank you so much for giving me this opportunity to speak to you today on building a culture of excellence. I appreciate it very much. Any questions? I see Juliet. How are you? I have Melinda in. Any questions from anyone? Hi, Melinda.
Yeah, hi Tamara. That was an amazing talk. And
Thank you.
we have a question from our audience, Tamara. I want to ask that. Okay. How do you hold high performers accountable without demotivating them?
I think if you create, it's a great question. If we create an environment that's committed to excellence, then we create an environment that says it's okay to ask questions. So, for example, if you're looking at a guest survey, we use the hospitality example, go in and we see that someone at the front desk who is normally a poor performer got a guest survey back that says, the person that checked me in was very nice. Okay. And I look through my records and I see that that was Melinda. So I pull Melinda aside and I'm like, hey, Melinda, I love the things that you've been doing and I find something genuine to praise you on. And then I can say, look, we're committed to excellence. We're all about accountability. So what I'm going to do is that I'm going to go over this guest survey with you. This person said this. How does that sound? And then Melinda's probably going to be like, oh, wow, that doesn't sound good at all. I'm going to say, do you know that you're the one that checked them in? And you're probably going to be like, you're kidding me because you're committed to excellence. And I'm like, I know. So what's going on, Melinda? Was there a bad situation going on that day? Did you not have the support you needed? Why don't you tell me what you need from me? What was your barrier to success on that day? You see, my approach isn't, how dare you do that? It was really about, what is your barrier to success?
Okay. And we have another question got popped up now. How do you create a culture of accountability without creating a culture of blame?
That's another really great example because people think that in the beginning. And by the way, I go into non-performing teams, so people aren't real happy. Like they're really excited when I first get there. They're like, "Yay, she's here. She's going to make changes." And then it's like, "Uh-oh, I'm going to be part of the change. I got to do some things different." So there's typically this not so good honeymoon period. If you see it through and you're coming from a place of love, because I love my teams, and love means holding people accountable and say what you don't necessarily want to say always, they will see that in the end. But you have to live it and you have to breathe it. So whenever I make a mistake, I have to also say, you know what? That probably wasn't the best choice. If I check someone in and I realize afterwards I didn't attach them, we'll use that example again, to the right folio, I own it. I don't try to abdicate to someone else or blame someone else. Everything I do it. And not only that, but when I've led teams, whatever industry I've been in, which is heavy hospitality, I'm willing to jump in and I'm actually willing to work right alongside them. That helps create that culture of accountability.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Tamara. Thank you so much for your valuable time today. We are honored. And please be on the backstage and join the next session, Tamara.
Fantastic. Thank you. I enjoyed it very much. Have a
Yeah.
great day.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye bye.
Bye.